morning. I am Christina Feltzman, Director of Consulting Services with Ledgeview Partners. I would like to welcome you to today's Dynamics 365 User Group webinar. In today's webinar, we're going to start off the session with exciting information about our upcoming customer conference. As promised in last month's User Group webinar, we are going to continue into a deeper dive on what's new in Dynamics 365. Michael is going to highlight some new features like business process flows, interactive service hub, and relevance search. As always, we'll answer your pre-submitted questions. We will then close out the webinar with information on our next month's CRM User Group webinar. For housekeeping, to ensure the best audio quality for all attendees, we have everyone on listen-only mode. If you have a question, please submit it in the question pane of your GoToWebinar control panel. We do have a full 30 minutes planned today, so if we don't get to your question, we'll follow up offline or include it in an upcoming webinar. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand in the next few days. All registered attendees will receive an email with an access link to the recording as well as the presentation slides. Now to talk about our 4th annual CRM conference at the Harley-Davidson Museum in Milwaukee. Join us on Thursday, May 4th, where our own Ledgeview experts will present 18 different sessions ranging from what's new in Dynamics 365 to service, portal, marketing, business intelligence, Internet of Things, also known as IoT, user adoption before, during, and after implementation, plus many more sessions. Or join us in the admin zone where you can interact one-on-one with our consultants. Ask them for a demo, ask questions, or look for recommendations to solve your business challenges. In addition to the great session content, it's a great networking opportunity to meet and learn from other customers just like you. Please don't miss this informational packed day. To register, visit our website at ledgeviewpartners.com. Now to get to today's featured topic, I will turn over to Michael Dodd, Support Consultant with Ledgeview Partners, as he dives deeper into Dynamics 365.
Thank you, Christina, for that wonderful introduction. And I hope to see many of you at the CRM conference. We're really looking forward to meeting you. Like Christina said, we have an action-packed conference, so let's jump an action-packed webinar today, so let's jump on in. As we talked about last time, Dynamics 365 is rolling out a lot of new features. Today I'm going to roll into a few new ones. We're going to talk about business process flow and business rule setup changes. Now, business process flow and business rules, they're not new, but the way you set them up is completely different. Interactive Service Hub, that was introduced in CRM 2016, but they've added some new features, being able to email links to different records right from there and to be able to search. And then a feature that I'm really excited about is Relevance Search. Basically taking search, applying analytics, and making it even more enhanced to make it work better for you. So I'm really excited to talk about that. First, we're going to talk about business process flow enhancements. With business process flow, it is now possible to run concurrent process flows for one record. So what that means is you could be starting to work on a record, let's say a lead that has a business process flow, and it reaches a certain point that you need to use a different process flow. You can stop that flow and start a new one, and it will show that information. Stages in a business process flow can execute workflows. I'm going to go through a business process flow that I set up and how to set it up, and one of the things that I did was execute a workflow while exiting a stage. So you can execute it when entering a stage or when exiting a stage. So very, very powerful tool. And then you can abandon or finish a process in the middle. Finish is not necessarily in the middle, it's more in the last stage of the process, but you can set it to finish the process, or if you're in the middle and this process flow just isn't working, you can abandon it. They can always be reactivated later. Next, we're going to jump into business process flow, and in a minute here, I'm going to jump into CRM and show you exactly how to do this. Excuse me. But what I want to talk about first is what I've set up and what I'm going to demonstrate. So we're going to start off with the first stage where we're going to determine the case type. So this is a case business process flow. And then based off that case, we're going to have a conditional step that's going to show whether we take one route with different process flow stages or a different route that has other business process flow stages and steps and questions to answer. So if the case type is problem, We're going to check that they have an ad hoc support agreement. Then we're going to kick off an email through a workflow that's going to send the email to the support team. And then the support team will determine the product version and the due date. Now, if the case type is problem, we're going to go down a different route. We're going to just go to the support team determining the budget, product version, and due date, and then provide enhancement details or answer to the question once they've finished. So let's jump into CRM, and I'll show you how easy this is to do. Within Dynamics 365, we want to start by jumping to Settings and then Processes, because Business Process Flow is a process that exists on the records. So if you have an existing business process flow, you can access it right from here, or you can click on New. We're going to jump into Case Demo Process. And once this comes up, you're going to see that this looks brand new. What you're used to seeing is more kind of a command prompt. Basically, here's this stage, here's all the different steps in there, and then we're going to move to the next one. We can branch off, but it's not real visual. This is more like a flow. We're flowing through this stage, so visually you can see what's happening. So we start off with the first stage, which is case type. So within case type, we're asking them to fill out the case type field, which is an option set, so they'll choose from the 3 different options. You can make this required simply by check marking this. That means before they can move to the next stage, they have to answer the question. That's not different from the previous setup, but I just want to show you how you put it in here in the new setup. Once this question is answered, then we go into the condition step. And what we're asking here is, for that case type that we just asked, if it's a problem, then we want to go down this route. So you see the check mark here? This means the condition is met. We're going to go down this route. If the condition is not met, so X, then we go down this process. So let's say the case type is problem. We're going to flow down this business process flow, and this is what it's going to show right on the screen. It's going to ask this question: has a support agreement? So does the customer have a support agreement? Basically a nice way of confirming that there's a contract in place or a service contract in place to make sure that we're helping the customer. Once we've answered and exited this stage, we're going to kick off a workflow. We're kicking off the workflow email support team. So really what you do is you just choose from here your different workflows. And your trigger, basically, when are we kicking off this workflow? When we exit this stage. So once we move on to this next stage, it's going to kick off this workflow. The other option is in stage entry, so when we move into this stage. Those are your 2 options to trigger a workflow. Then you'll move into the next stage, and this is where your support team is gathering information for the case, for the problem. So we want to know the product version. We want to know the due date, like when does this need to be fixed by? Is it maybe like an urgent systems down issue, which means now it has to be fixed, or is it it's a problem but not business critical? So that's information that you can gather. Again, you can make it required. And then as they move on to the next stage, resolution, this is going to be the case field, the resolution field, which is a multi-line text field, so they can fill out all the information for the resolution. Now, let's say that this was actually, we didn't meet the conditions. Well, then we want to go down here, and this is what will show on their business process flow. It won't have these 2 sections. It'll either show one or the other, depending on the condition met. And you're going to find out the budget, the product version, and the due date for the customer. Basically, since it's not a problem, how much do they want to spend on it? What's the product version that they have, because it depends on the enhancements that can be done, and when do they want this done by? And then again, resolution, did you answer the question? What enhancement did you do? Now, a new feature here is also validation. Now, this is an active business process flow. If we deactivate this, you'll show that you can validate the tool. So when this reloads, I'll show you that there's a validation section. Now, also, when you click save, it does the validation for you, so you don't have to click validate. You can just click save. Save validation successful. Process may need further activation, which just means you need to activate. So that's the new business process flow. Next, we're going to jump into business rule demo. Business, excuse me, business rule is set up with the same type of format layout that we just saw in business process flow, but there's a lot of really cool features that we can do with it. So we're going to run through a scenario, and I'll show you how I built this. So a really cool feature that we can do is we can show an error message if certain conditions are met. So we want to show an error message if the state of Oregon and the state is Oregon and the opportunity type is public works. Really, we want to say, hey, at this time, we cannot do public works contracts within the state of Oregon. Maybe there's a dispute, maybe there's, we just haven't won the contract, something like that. So it's just a nice way of telling your user, hey, not sure if you meant to put this as a public works contract or meant to put the state of Oregon, but you can't proceed. It could be, oh, I forgot, let me talk to the customer, or I put in the wrong state, I meant to put in Washington. And then you can do else if. So basically, if that first condition wasn't met, let's look at another condition where the state is not Oregon, but the opportunity type is public works. Then we want to unhide or show the public works contract number field. So it's a really great, useful tool, one, to make sure your users are following the correct you as a system admin and you as a user are following the process of not basically using an opportunity type of public works for Oregon or whatever happens to be for your business, and then unhiding fields that are not necessary if we're not working in a public works contract. So let's jump into CRM and I'll show you how to do this. So for a business rule, we actually go directly to the entity. So we're going to go to opportunities, and we're just going to open up any record, and we're going to go into the form section. So within form, which is right up here at the top, we just click on form, and then once this loads, there's going to be a business rule section at the top. You want to click on that. If there's an existing business rule, it's going to show here on the side. If you didn't have one, you would just click new business rule. So we're going to jump into the business rule that I created. And as you can see here, we're going to start off with a condition. So just like business process flow, there's a check mark and an X mark. So conditions met, conditions not met. So our condition is, and we can do two, and we can do an and or an or statement. So for entity, we want to ask, is the opportunity type equal public works? And is the state Oregon? If yes, and our rule logic is and, so it has to beat both of those criteria, we're going to move on to the next section, which is show the error message. We're choosing to show this error message on the state. So there's going to be a red circle with a white X in there, and there's going to be an error message that shows next to it, and also an error message down by the save item. So in case you click save, you'll also get that error message. And your message is completely what you want it to be. Currently, we cannot work on public works contracts from Oregon. You could set that to be whatever you want and set it to error on any field. Now, let's say that first condition wasn't met. You can, if it fails one condition, you can set another condition for it to meet. And then if it doesn't mean anything, it doesn't do anything. The X is blank down here. So if it meets this condition, which is the state does not equal Oregon, and the opportunity type equals public works, then we're going to set visibility. So the visibility of the public works contract number, we're going to set to visible yes. Now this matters if you have this field hidden by default. So there's a visible by default button within the field logic. You want to make sure that's set to no, because otherwise it's already visible, and this business rule isn't going to unhide it because it's already visible. So you have this flow that you can look at to see how the business rule flows through. Then you also have the text. If this, then this happens. Else if, conditions met, then this happens. So you have the two ways of looking at it. Next, I want to talk about Interactive Service Hub enhancements. Interactive Service Hub was introduced in CRM 2016, but they added some new functionality. How to email a link. You can now check mark one or multiple records and email directly from CRM. It'll open up those links. It'll put those links in the name right in an email for you, and you can send it off to anyone you need to. And now you can also search within Interactive Service Hub. So let's jump into CRM, and I'll show you how to do that. So you want to open up Interactive Service Hub, and by how to do that, you go to Settings, and then click Interactive Service Hub. This does take a little bit to open, especially if you made customizations since the last time you opened. Then it'll need to run through building those customizations into here, and then it will open. So if we navigate to the service accounts, and we want to email a link, we can check mark these two and click Email a Link. And then what this will do is it will say, do you want your computer to open the program? You would click Allow, and it would open up an email for you. Then within the account, so just like in Dynamics 365, you can search for a record based on the entity level, or you can do global search by clicking on the search function right here and then typing in your information. Click Enter, and it'll look for accounts, activities, appointments, various information. So a very, very powerful tool like you see in 365 every day, but it's now in the Interactive Service Hub. Last but definitely not least, I'm going to be talking about Relevance Search. Relevance Search is a very powerful tool. Basically what it does is it takes information from CRM and it indexes that information in a service external to Dynamics. And that service is called Azure Search Index. So it takes, applies analytics to improve search performance through the Azure search technology. And what it does is it allows you to find a match to any word in your search. So if you typed in testing data, it's going to look for testing and it's going to look for data. So any one of those words that it finds a match to in any field in an entity and in any entity you set up to search, it'll put all that information into a nice long list and it will bold the matching results. Now the order of the search comes to play in how many words are matched. So if testing is, there's like 100 testing in your record, that's going to be at the top of the list. Where if you have one, it's probably more towards the bottom. And then again, any matches are highlighted or bolded. Now, I'm going to go through the steps of how you would set this up. It is highly recommended that you perform all the configuring steps prior to turning on Relevance Search. The reason for that is because all your data is indexed. All the different entities and fields that you set up to be indexed or to be searchable are now in Azure, which is outside of 365. If you then turn off Relevance Search, you decide it's not for you, it's going to give you a pop-up that says 24, please allow 24 hours for us to remove this information. It'll have that pop-up box. You could read exactly what it said. There's a lot of privacy policies on this that you can read about further. Microsoft has some great information out there. Please note this is not available for Dynamics 365 on-premise customers. It's only for online customers. You can index up to 1,000 fields. It sounds like a lot, but if you have hundreds of fields or 100 fields on 10 entities, your information's up. That's all the fields you can do. So you want to make sure that you're searching fields that matter, not just random fields that are on your entities. Now, while there's no maximum limit of the numbers of entities you can search, the record type filter that's on here is only going to show data from 10 entities. Now, to configure Relevance Search, you want to navigate into Settings, Customizations, Customize the System. Now, within here, normally I have you click on the little arrow next to the Entities button. This time, you'll just click right on the Entities button. In the top kind of menu of options, there will be a button called Configure Relevance Search. There's going to be some entities that by default are already configured. Custom entities will not, so you'll want to make sure you move those over if you want them to be included in Relevance Search. Then you can configure which fields are searchable. Just like searching in an entity and doing global search, it uses the quick find view. So when you navigate to the entity and go to views, you want to make sure you select quick find view. So open up that quick find view and you're going to add find columns. This is the same thing that you do when you want to be able to search, let's say, address. When you go into global search and you want to search for an address now to be able to pull up a record, you add address as a find field. So it's the same thing with relevant search. Then you're going to go ahead and do the exact same steps for adding the view columns. Then to include an entity in relevant search, most of these are already going to be enabled, but some are not, so it's just a final check to make sure. Navigate to the desired entity and customize the system. So click on the little arrow next to entities, choose account. Once you click on account, you click manage properties. At the bottom of that manage properties section, it's going to be an option that says can enable sync to external search index, basically saying yes, you can sync this with Azure Search Index. This is on by default for some out of the box and all custom entities. If it's already on and that first step where you configured relevant search and you move that to yes, if that's done and you want to move this to false, you no longer want it to be part of relevant search, this entity. You need to go back to that very first step, remove it from the list, then go and change this to false. Then your very last step is to turn on relevant search. And this is actually the easiest portion. You go to Settings, Administration, System Settings, then the General tab, which is the first tab. It defaults to that. Then about the middle of the page is going to be Enable Relevant Search. This is where you're going to get your pop-up messages giving you the privacy warnings and information. Next, we're going to jump into CRM, and I'll show you what relevant search looks like. So all we have to do is click on our global search function here, and we just type in, we're going to go with test. Because mine's a testing environment, most things have test in them. So your default search, when you turn on relevant search, is going to come up relevant search. You can change this back to the standard categorized search or the standard global search, where it looks at accounts, contacts, leads, things like that. So you can toggle between the two. Within relevant search, as you can see here, it's going to show you the entity. This is the name of the customer. Really original name, testing. Again, test environment, a lot of information like that. So anywhere test or a variation of test, so testing, tester, tested, comes into play, it's going to show that information right here. And then you can simply click on the record and open it right in Dynamics 365. Click back, we'll go back and take a look here. So contacts, leads, campaigns, any entity that you said, yes, I want to search, and then any field that you said, yes, I want to be able to search that information, it's going to show up in here if it fits test. Really cool, the analytics here, it's going to show you, okay, there's 11 contacts that meet the search criteria, 7 accounts, 7 opportunities, and you can show all of them if you like. Okay? Owner, 23 are owned by CRM admin, that's me. 16 are owned by Christina, and then 4 by Tyler. So that gives you a breakdown of that information. Then it shows, okay, if I know it was modified on today, well then let me pull it all the way to today. All right, well today, only so many were calculated. If I want to look at this, 1 month ago, 29 of these were updated. So there's some more analytics that you have. So from modified on and created on. So relevant search is a really, really powerful tool. Next, we're going to jump into some user-submitted questions. Our first question from users is, have others had problems with the sales opportunity staging in Dynamics 365 to work properly? We could not move through the sales stages. Existing business process flows would not deactivate or activate to allow editing. and the business process stage was lost. Now, Dynamics 365 has experienced some bugs that Microsoft is currently working to resolve. We have not seen this particular issue, for the business process flow not advancing sales stages. To resolve this and determine if it's a bug, we would really want to do some further troubleshooting. Now, again, there have been some issues with the business process flow for on-prem and online customers. They have made some updates that will affect business process flow bugs. I can't state if it's going to be all of them, but I know they have stated that some of those fixes will be in update rollup 1, which is coming on April 22nd. Our next question is, if you have custom JavaScripts in CRM 2015, are they 100% compatible in 365? Basically, anything custom, there's no guarantee if it's all going to be compatible or not. The way you really want to look at this is there's a feature called a custom code validator tool. You want to use the version that is for the version you're updating to. So if you're going to 365, you want to use, 365 validator tool. Please note, especially in this scenario, he's in CRM 2015 trying to jump to Dynamics 365. He won't be able to do this. User will not be able to do this because you can only be one version behind the version of the validator tool. So if he was on 2016 going to 365, validator tool would work great. That being said, you never want to rely solely on the tool, as it will not catch everything. The next step is looking through the code to determine what you feel may break. At Ledgeview Partners, our developers have amazing industry knowledge and expertise and experience to look through the code to determine what's going to break and what they feel is safe. CRM allows tracking of emails. How do you tie these to a specific project lead rather than individual when more than one project is associated with a single individual? Great question. When you click the Set Regarding button in Outlook, a lookup box comes up, and it's going to be looks like this: Lookup Record. What you want to change is this Look For section. You would change it to, a lead, the project itself, whatever entity you wish to associate that email to. How do I get CRM to pull entered contacts from Outlook? This can be set within personal options. If you select the Email tab, you can click on the Create Checkmark. And I'll jump into CRM and I'll show you this real quick in the exact section it is. But you'll select contacts from the drop-down list. This will automatically create a contact record from the sender or organizer of the meeting you tracked if the email does not match an email address for an existing CRM record. What that means is, let's say John Smith is already in CRM and he sends an email and I track it. It's not going to create another John Smith record. But if John Smith isn't in CRM, it will automatically create that record if I tracked it. You can also automate this even further with Outlook Client Diagnostics, correlation settings, and more personal settings. Your support team at Ledgeview Partners would be happy to help you further with this if you have further questions. Let's jump into CRM and I'll show you those system settings really quick, or those personal option settings. So from our options, we're going to click on the Email tab. So it's right here, the checkmark Create Contacts. So you can do it for contacts or leads. So it's going to automatically create records. That's what you would want to check. And that's our last question for today. I do know a lot of you submitted information for our questions upon the relationships within CRM. Stay tuned on the further slides and you'll see why we decided not to cover those in today's webinar.
All right. Thank you, Michael, for that great content. And as Michael just mentioned, we have received a lot of questions lately regarding relationships. So we have decided to make that our feature topic for next month. So please join us on Wednesday, May 17th at 1:30 p.m. And Michael will give you some more insights on relationships. So on behalf of myself, Michael, and all of us at Ledgeview, we want to thank you for taking the time to attend our user group webinar today. We look forward to seeing you next month. And don't forget to register for our upcoming CRM conference on May 4th it's not too late to register. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and I can answer those for you. Have a wonderful day.